It's Friday, it's 12 noon. It is time for the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. We appreciate you being here today. And today we're talking taxes because we're in March. April 15th is coming up a month and 4 days. So about four or 5 weeks away from now. But before we get into talking with Adam Coen, tax manager with Jack Larderman CPA, PC, he not only is a tax expert, but Adam, I read today on Facebook that you're also a superhero.
I am. It's true.
Yeah. You had a little incident in your kitchen.
Yes, somehow my wife's beaters, while she was making a dessert,
The hand
ended up in her
mixer.
hair. Yeah,
Wait, she what?
it ended up in her hair.
And
Yeah, yeah.
and so
I'm not quite sure how it happened, actually.
so like the good husband that you are, instead of helping her get the hand mixer beaters out of her hair, you took photos.
Yes. Well, I was told I wasn't allowed to laugh, but I was not barred from taking photos, so I did do that.
Nice, nice.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
let's let's talk about taxes because the topic today literally frightens me. The day where my phone rings, I pick it up, I say hello, and it's the IRS, and I'm being audited. Now, the IRS doesn't make phone calls, do they?
I was going to say, if you get that phone call, you should just hang up because it's a
Right,
scam. Yeah,
right.
they won't call you like that. The only time you'd ever hear from them is in a letter or in worst case scenario, a knock at your door.
Oh my goodness, that's the one you
Yeah.
don't want.
Yeah, or worse yet, they come to your office,
Okay.
which happens from time to time.
All right. So this is not only a topic for business people, but also for individuals as well. I'm being
Correct.
audited. What do I do?
Well, the first question is, where did the letter come? Did it come to your home or did it come to your office? Are they auditing your personal tax return? Or are they auditing your business tax return? And are they auditing the income tax returns or are they auditing the employment tax returns? These are all important aspects that you need to know the answers to. So the first thing that first is if you got a CPA, contact your CPA, find out what it is that they really are looking at and why. If you don't have a CPA or you have somebody that you just have prepare your returns, but they're not really your CPA, then you need to look at consulting with an expert, somebody who does this on the regular basis, like me. That's what I do. So you need to go through those notices, figure out why they're auditing you. It could be routine. It could be that something's been flagged. It could be that unfortunately you had an unscrupulous return preparer who did something they shouldn't have done. It could be any number of things as to why they pulled it.
And you can go back to the IRS and help me if this is true or not. You can go back to the IRS and ask them specifically what part of the return is being audited.
That's true, and they have to list that out. If they have given you a notice that they're going to audit you, there's going to be certain items that they're going to say, "Hey, we're looking at X, Y, and Z." They don't have carte blanche. There are a handful of types of cases where they can do that, and those are done for statistical purposes. But because of COVID, those are incredibly rare right now. But if it's something like a regular tax return being looked at, they're going to have anywhere from 1 to 7 items usually that they're looking at.
All right. And what typically are some of the types of audits? What typically is the IRS looking for?
Sure. So if you're self-employed, undoubtedly it is an issue of matching your revenue to what's been reported to the IRS or verifying your expenses. That is the most common thing. If you're not self-employed, if you're retired or you're a working person on a W-2, there's probably some document that you forgot to include with your tax return, and that's the reason that they're looking at the return. Now, that brings me to the two main types of audits. You've got what's called a field audit or an examination of a regular tax return. That's the main thing we're talking about. But you also have what's called automated under reporter notices, and AUR. So an AUR is a notice. CP2000 is the most common notice number you'll see. And when that comes in the mail, they're saying, hey, we looked at your tax return. It doesn't match our records. So we're proposing to increase your tax based upon what we see. You have an option to fight that. You can say, no, you're wrong. You've done your calculation incorrectly, or you've forgotten something. My basis in my stock that I sold, or excuse me, or there may be something else, like you sold your home and your title company filed a 1099-S and said that you should pay tax on the proceeds of those sales. And you have to say, well, no, that's not true. I bought my house and I paid cash for it, or I paid money for it. And oh, by the way, there's an exclusion under Section 121. And so you shouldn't be able to tax me on this. There could be any number of things that pop up that say, hey, IRS, your systems are saying that I owe this money, but they're wrong.
How important is it to have a professional back you up, a tax manager, a CPA, especially if you don't have one?
Sure.
Perhaps I went online and did my taxes. I've been audited, and now is it recommended that they be backed by a professional?
So, I mean, obviously I have a bias, but the answer to that
Yeah.
would be yes, 100%. And somebody who is skilled, not just in the understanding of how the tax return should be prepared, but somebody who's skilled in terms of IRS practice and procedure, because that's a whole nother animal. There's a lot of CPAs out there who do tax work and do great work, but they don't know how to deal with the IRS. And so there's an extra layer of competency that's needed to understand the IRS's rules so that they can be applied appropriately as well.
And the CPA or the tax professional can help also break down the question, why am I being audited?
Absolutely. Well, here's a prime example, and I won't go too far into this, but I was representing a client this past year. We just wrapped up his audit at the beginning of this year. His corporation and he were both under audit for 2 years. And the auditor who was assigned was a young guy. I think he was very fresh and new to the service, to the IRS. And he didn't really know the limitations of his own power. And he kind of went to his head. So he made all kinds of wild accusations about my client. He made threats of imposing penalties that were totally unfounded. He made threats of referring this client to criminal prosecution. He made threats of, there were various things. It went on and on and on. Ultimately, unfortunately for him, I've done this for a long time and I understand he's gone way past his bounds. So now we're getting a manager involved. We're getting a territory manager involved. We're referring this for review internally, that kind of thing. So if you don't have somebody who's willing to stand up for your rights, number one, but then understands what those rights are, you're asking for trouble.
And as say an individual whose 1040 has been audited, can they ask for an appeal?
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's say that you fought and you fought and you fought, and the IRS the machine just is not understanding what you're telling them.
Mm-hmm.
You've sent in your documentation, your receipts, and they just won't give you what the end result should be. You can appeal that and you get an administrative appeal. There is even an additional layer. If it's a big enough deal, you could take it to tax court if you absolutely had to. At that point, you get an attorney involved. But for the most part, there's a lot better outcome in the appeals level than there is at the lower level. Just because you're dealing with somebody with a lot more leeway, but they also they tend to be a lot more skilled and they understand the ins and outs of what you're telling them. And they have to consider the hazards of litigation, right? So they have to consider, how much is this going to cost the government if we just don't give up this issue? Right. Does that mean that you're going to always win? No. But if you have merits, it's a lot better chance.
But I would assume also the individual has to figure out that an attorney is going to cost me X, and mm-hmm. You know what, the IRS is only asking for $500 or what have you. And you also have to weigh that balance too, so from the individual standpoint, as opposed to what is this going to cost the government?
Right.
There's a lot of factors go in there. So to recap, The IRS does not make phone calls.
They do not make phone calls. That is absolutely right. Do
Right.
not give them gift card numbers.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And so ask why you're being audited, the different types of being audited. We talked about, and of course, it's always good to be backed by a tax professional in the event that you do have to go in front of the IRS and state your case.
Absolutely, 100%.
If someone had questions about being audited or tax, as we mentioned, tax is coming up. April 15th is only a month away. If they want to reach out to Adam Coen, how can they get a hold of you?
So reach out to us here at the office. We're at 817-231-0666. Again, 231-0666, or you can find us online. We're at dfwtaxteam.com.
Adam Coen, tax manager with Jack Lauderman, CPA, PC. Next week, even though it's spring break, I'm coming back early. You and I are going to get together right here on Facebook, on Zoom, on. If you missed the live stream, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on LinkedIn. Next week, we're talking international tax considerations.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Yes. So have a great week. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you then. Bye-bye.